You're listening to the Rise Above podcast, the only podcast on the planet with a mission to help you live a free and uncommon life. Here's your host, Greg Smith.
Yes. What's up, everybody? Welcome. Today, you are listening to the Rise Above podcast, and I am your host, Greg Smith, and I believe if you desire uncommon freedom in business and in life, it starts with creating a champion's mindset from within. So today's episode is kind of special. As you have noticed, if you're a longtime listener of mine, consistency on the podcast front has not been something, and I've admitted this many times, but it hasn't been something that I've been very good at. And I think part of it is it's a one-way communication tool, and it also, I kind of joked about this with my podcast producer, who is on with me right now. What's up, Jonathan? Say hello to the Rise Above listeners.
What's up, Rise Above listeners? I'm doing this for you. I want you to know, because I know you miss Greg. So I've actually grabbed him by the neck and told him you're recording today.
He legit did. And it's interesting because I was telling Jonathan not too long ago that typically the mechanic, you guys, many people, you have probably heard this, the mechanic typically has the worst car, or the shoe repairman typically has the worst pair of shoes. And that's because we always put everybody else, in front of us. It's easier to do somebody else's laundry than it is your own or their own dishes. And so, yes, Jonathan has strong-armed to me and said, hey man, just put me on. Let's schedule a time. My wife and 4 kids are in the basement. So we have a first story and a second story home, and then a basement. I'm all the way up top in the second story, as far away as I can be from the basement entrance. And then they are all downstairs. So God bless my wife for doing that so we could record this today. So, we didn't really have a super big plan for today, but it was interesting because we were just talking about the fact that we're talking about ratings and reviews, not taking offense. And I've talked about this before. And
can you come on, Greg? Can you really not take offense? I think you're being silly.
Well, no, I think everybody. I think it's the way that you take it. There's actually a really good book called The Bait of Satan, which helped me dramatically learn not to take offense. And I really do think I do a pretty good job of not taking offense, because ultimately I think when somebody's offended. Now, here's the thing. If I'm taking offense to somebody, it's typically my own issue. It's typically not theirs. And if I'm the one that's offended and I'm thinking about it, guess who's losing sleep? I am, not the offended, right? I am not the offender. The offender's not losing sleep. It's the person who's choosing to be offended. So, there's an old saying somebody, used to say like, oh, I'm not going to stand here and take offense. And the pastor said, well, then where are you going to go? Like, where are you going to go and take your offense, right? So I think everybody does take offense. It's easy to, but I do think, coming back to a really good book called The Bait of Satan, I think being offended is a choice. And I think you can choose to take offense or not take offense. Now, in my opinion, if somebody is offended by me, then I do, and this is one of, it's a weakness and a strength in a way in my eyes, is like, I don't want to offend anybody, really. I mean, I don't want to, and I want people to like me, and I think most people want to be liked. But if I've done something that I don't know that I've done to offend you, and you're offended, like, please just bring it up. You know what I mean? Because oftentimes it's a misunderstanding of the way I was perceived, or maybe I said something I didn't even know I said it. And so I think this wasn't even what we're going to talk about, but clear lines of communication when you're choosing to be offended, I think is really, really important. And I think it is a choice. I really do. Like, you can choose to be offended by something or not. And, if somebody does something to offend you, you got to realize that's their problem. You know what I mean? Like, you can choose to wallow in that and make it your problem too, or you can just choose to focus on what matters, which focusing on what matters is what we were actually talking about.
Yeah, but let's dive into that just a little bit deeper, because I understand what you're saying and I get it. And I'm also in my 40s. I didn't get that when I was in my 20s. Okay. So how do you get to that evolved state? Because knowing that's a choice is like you're not an amoeba anymore. You're an evolved person. How do you figure that out?
Well, first off, I'm not in my 20s anymore, but I did learn it when I was in my 20s. I really believe that that book specifically for me changed me. Like I could pull it right off the shelf and show you, but when you really learn like everything is a choice. I mean, this is why I talk about mindset. I believe, it goes within, right? Creating a champion's mindset from within. I believe that all things come from in between your ears. And so how you choose to respond to something is your choice,
I
right?
call BS on you. I call BS on you. Everything comes from between your ears. What about from your heart? Because what we're talking about is an emotional response versus a mental response. So the mental is the evolved, but most people are living in the heart.
For sure. I guess you're talking about a logical way of looking at something versus an emotional way. Emotions. Here's this is a John Wooden, famous coach, for basketball, said that emotion is the enemy. He was talking about playing basketball, but this goes for many different things where emotion can be the enemy. So I think the key is, I talk a lot about relationships. If you're, if you've listened to me for any amount of time, relationships are really important to me. And so I think the key is, number one, if somebody is offensive toward you, as an example, if they want to give you a 1-star review, right? You have to look at the person and say, do I have a relationship with that person? And did I mean to offend them? Did I do it? Like we joke in jiu-jitsu all the time. I joke. It's kind of like my saying is, we'll be doing jiu-jitsu and you're trying to kill each other, like to the fake death. You're like trying to choke each other, break your arms, all that stuff. And every now and then you'll get clocked in the face with a heel or a fist or a headbutt. And, the guys, especially lower belts, they'll always be like, I'm so sorry. Like a little white belt, and I was a white belt. You'd be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, please don't kill me. Like, that's what you're saying. And I say, hey, listen, you don't have to be sorry unless you meant it. And if you meant it, you're probably not sorry because you did it on purpose. So that's my philosophy of like offending somebody is if you did it on purpose, then you're really not sorry for it. Right. And so therefore, like I look at the person who you choose to take offense from, you can emotionally take offense, right? I mean, I think that's what you're saying is like there is a trigger to just being offended, like, oh my gosh. But then I think you have to look at it logically and start rationalizing, like, should I be offended by that? And is that really my problem, or is it actually their problem that they're now outputting on me? And I think when you really step back, I think, yes, emotionally, you're going to be offended. Do you choose to hold on to the offense is I guess what we're drawing out of here is I choose not to hold on to offense because frankly, it's going to eat you alive. And I don't have time for that. And if I am taking offense to something, guess what? I'm going to call you up and say, Jonathan, man, like, I don't really want to hold on to this because I know it's just going to fester for me. And I don't know if you meant it this way, but you had said this earlier. And so I just want to kind of like talk about it. I mean, if you did mean it that way, cool, let's talk about it. But if you didn't, like, my apologies, because I've been like sitting here thinking about this for a couple of days now. Then it's over. I mean, I don't know. I'm like my wife's always like, you're such an emotional person. And I am, but that's why I'll just talk. Like, I don't want to fester up feelings. I mean, half the time the feelings are on false conditions.
False feelings. So what was the topic? I can't even remember because it is something about them reviews. I took you way off track.
You did. I was telling you that, all of my reviews, and by the way, if you haven't reviewed my show and you listen to my show, please, I would love for you to review my show. Just like right now, boom, 5 stars if you want to. If you want to give me 1 star, give me 1 star. I will tell you though, that I only had 1 star for the first year and a half. And then I hadn't looked at my ratings forever. And I pulled back up my ratings. I had a new 5-star, and the lady was nice enough to leave a comment, which I love it when people leave comments, good or bad. And she left a comment, and I noticed, I was like, wait a minute, I have another 1 star. I was like, what the heck? Like, where did that come from? And then I was genuinely hoping that I would see somebody actually like, yeah, you suck, and here's why, and they would give me feedback. And they didn't. And so like, I was like, man, where did this one start? Like, where did this come from? You know? And at first it was like eating at me for a second. And then I was like, wait a minute, it doesn't matter. Like that person doesn't matter because they're not my people. It's just, they're not jiving my message, and that's fine. And so I parlayed that into just the other night, I got feedback. I did a presentation for attorneys, and it was really, really interesting. It was the Ohio Criminal Defense Lawyer Association. So it's a bunch of criminal defense lawyers. And man, I went into that meeting, by the way, and I'm like, hey, I'm Greg. Nice to meet you. And man, I tried to say hi to every single person that morning, and they just had the most mug faces. I mean, it was like you were in the court of law, and I was like, dude, I'm being judged by all these people, and they didn't even know I was a speaker yet. You know what I mean? Like, they just thought I was another attorney in the room. And anyways, I did the presentation. Presentation went phenomenal, in my opinion, for what it was. I got really great feedback from the leaders, you know, that were in the room, like the guy, the new president, the past president. A couple guys came up to me. I told a story on my Facebook Live where somebody actually even wants to hire me to come down to a masterminding event in Key West because he liked it so much. So, but I got all of the reviews back, you know, where they had to rate. There were 5 speakers that day. I was the first one, you know, first thing in the morning, Greg Smith, rah, rah. And they had to rate you 1 through 5. They rated the whole event, then they rated each speaker, and they would give feedback or not give feedback. And so I went through, and I was like, oh, 5, nice. Yeah, 4, nice. Oh, 3, nice. Yeah, 4, okay. Oh, 1. I'm like, crap, 1. You know, and then I was like, oh, kept reading, more 4s, 3s, 5s, and then another 1. And then another 1. I think there were 3 1s. I pulled it up on a spreadsheet. Yeah, I had 3 1s and 1 2. So 4 out of the 17 that actually took time to fill out a review gave me a 2 or a 1. I'm like, crud. One of them gave good feedback and was just like, hey, not my jam. Would have loved to have more attorney specific, you know, education. Now, granted though, on a side note, my presentation did get approved by the Ohio Supreme Court for continuing education credits. So that was a pretty big, like, yeah, I felt pretty cool about that because I had to like go back and forth with them. But anyways, here's my point. Out of those 17, I had 11 had gave me a 4 or a 5. And those were the ones that actually left feedback. And I noticed a tendency on many of them, I would say 2 of the 3 that gave me a 1, they gave like everybody a 1 or a 2. Like they're just like sour apples. Like, oh, this was a horrible day. You know, like, yeah. I'm like, okay, like I can't, what am I going to do? Like nobody pleased you that day. So I'm not worried. But then there was one, you know, that I was like, a little self-internalization here. I had a 1 and everybody else was like a 3 and a 5.
Ouch.
You know? Yeah. And I was like, dang, man, I was like the one that guy hated or girl hated for the day. And, but then.
Did you go looking for them?
I did. I want to be like, where's your name on this sheet? You know, I'm going to Google you.
I'm going to change your mind.
Yeah. No, you know, I used to think like that. Like, I'm going to make you like me. It's like, no, like, I'm not going to worry about it. Like humans are all different, you know? And that's what we're saying is I look at all the people with the 4s and the 5s, and I look at the people with the podcast reviews of the 4s and the 5s. And I think, okay, those are my people. Those are my audience. How do I serve them better? What did they like? How do I give them more? Because they're going to become the super fans in the long run. You're going to have haters, you know? I mean, Donald Trump has people who just absolutely fanatically love him and fanatically hate him. Hillary Clinton, fanatically love, fanatically hate. And so we were talking about this. It's Perry Marshall, one of the guys that I study with marketing and so forth. He has the Amazon 3.5 phenomena chapter where it talks about how you have a majority of people that will vote 1 or a majority vote 5 or 4, and therefore you end up with the 3.5 rating. And so I actually did the math on my attorney seminar. It comes out to 3.588.
You're above average.
I'm like, hey man, I'm offending some people, and you know, and I'm also making others love me. I guess I'm winning, you know. Isn't
that better than having people that are indifferent?
Well, I think that's 100%. You know, at the end of the day, what was it like? Dan Kennedy said, if you're not offending somebody by noon, you're just not doing your job as a marketer. I think it was him. You'll have to look it up. But I mean, you know, at the end of the day, if you have a strong message and you're truly sharing what you actually believe in helping people, there are going to be people who don't agree with you. That's fine. You know, that in its finest glory is what makes America America, is that you can actually have that without somebody, you know, imprisoning you or killing you or suppressing you, like what has happened in you know, many countries. Still happens today, you know, is suppression of thought. So that is what makes it amazing, but it's also something you have to be okay with as you're sharing a strong, bold message and your beliefs.
Does it hurt, Greg? Does it still hurt to get those 1-star reviews?
I mean, if I had like 50 of them, if I had like 10, I'd probably be like, oh my goodness, like I'm going downhill. But no, I got the majority of my listeners, you that are listening right now. Obviously you jam on it. It's good stuff. You know, I'm just trying to share from the heart. So if I get more 1-star reviews, I'll start wondering why so many people are 1-star reviewing me and why they're listening to me. But that, I don't know.
Look, I think you got it good, because I'm positive. I've seen your work, and I'm positive you don't get the things I get. I get comments on my videos and things like that. I hate this guy's face. I want to punch him and kill him. Like, I bet you nobody's saying that to you. And I'm like, okay, another day on Facebook.
I have not gotten to that point. I hope that I don't get to that point. No offense, but and like, I think if you say no offense, and then you can, it's kind of like, hey, with all due respect.
With all due respect.
Yeah, you can just say whatever you want after you say, with no offense, Jonathan, but I don't want to get to that point. So, but it easily could happen with my mug. So I don't know, but people are people, man, at the end of the day. And that's also, I mean, you're advertising and stuff too. And I kind of sit within a very specific group of people, and I haven't, like, you know, you're a step further than I am in terms of like putting yourself out publicly in front of a lot of people that don't know you. The majority of my listeners know me for years, you know, or personally, like, know me in person. So you're gonna have that stuff, man. Your content's great too, and you know that. So serving the right person that jams on it, and the wrong person says you have an ugly face.
So that's the lesson then, is I think what you started out with, I mean, if we're recapping here, is separate the emotion and the logic. It's okay to be emotional, and then let your logic take over, because we all have hearts. We all care. We want to be loved and liked. That's part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But if you're going to put yourself out there, expect that then, right? And be able to decipher whether, I agree with you. I love the idea that, and I'll tell you what happened to me recently, because you and I were laughing about this. And I said, if it weren't for bad reviews, I wouldn't have any on Amazon. And I got bad reviews on my book. I've sold 400 or 500 of these things. And I'll tell you what, I got one bad review, and he made fun of me, which I can appreciate. If it's funny, I can appreciate it. But he also said there was nothing actionable. And I thought, you know what would make this easier is if I put a thing at the end of each chapter that had 3 action steps, because I do know the content is actionable, but people still need to be led further. So I appreciate that he made fun of me and then told me how I could be better. So take criticism, right? If it's criticism that will help you, and do something about it.
Yeah. Which, you know what, that's the kind of guy that I like. If they're gonna rate you bad, but they give you good feedback, that's awesome, because you're a champion because you took the feedback and you made it better. You know, you made it better for the rest of the people. So I think that's huge. I mean, a lot of decisions are made with emotion, and then they're justified with logic. And so I think you know, if you can start making more decisions where emotional decisions aren't bad, but the emotional choice to be offended, I think you can logically pull it back and be like, is this me? Is this them? Are they displacing anger on me based upon their home life? I mean, that's the other thing too, man. I have a lot of compassion. I've learned over the years to take myself out of certain situations, because I have, through the years of helping and coaching and mentoring so many people, you come to find out, I mean, I've been very blessed with a good home life, you know, growing up. And, you know, like, even though we weren't like rich by any means, you know, like, my parents were awesome. They're always engaged and all that stuff. And, you know, there's so many other things that people are dealing with that, like, you can just be the recipient of built up issues. And sometimes you just gotta be like, yeah, man, that's actually like, if you decipher it, it's like, that's not me. Or you apologize for it and they still are offended. Bye-bye. So that's what I got for today. That's my episode.
All right. I'm digging it. And I will speak for all the other Rise Above listeners out there. We want you back again, Greg.
Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate, that's what's cool is having somebody in your corner that's like, hey man, like you need to get out there. You need to do the next thing, and having a support system. And so, it was kind of weird to be like, yeah, I'm going to have a co-host, but I always love chatting with you, and we always get into some deep stuff. So if you like this episode and you thought it was cool, I love feedback. I actually got feedback from my driving in the car with my microphone from a couple people that I know closely. I take that feedback. Say? Well, they had a good point. I think.
Well, you got mutters on there?
Well, yeah, they did. I think by extracting some of the audio, it was like, and so there's like this little noise instead of like a consistent road feedback. So I've been a little hesitant to continue recording in my car, but I do take the feedback. I love it. And I definitely want to continue, adding value into your life as you are listening, because I can tell you that somebody's attention and time is one of the most valuable resources that there is. So I am highly grateful to have you listening today. I hope that you enjoyed the show. If you did, drop a comment, leave a review, but I can't wait to talk to you next week. So take care. God bless. Thanks again, Jonathan, for today. See you guys.
Love it.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.